Hello everyone. Recently a new game engine got released called Usagi Game Engine. It claims to be a simple 2D game engine for rapid prototyping and uses Lua. From what I've seen, it seems really similar to Love 2D and I wanted to try it out today. So to start, I went to the Usagi website, downloaded it from GitHub. You can also get it from itch.io and Codeberg. Once it's finished downloading, I just unzipped it and it contained the Usagi engine, which is only one exe file. The first thing that struck me was how small the engine is. It's only 6 megabytes. Next, I just followed the documentation to set up a project. By the way, all the documentation of the engine is on the website. Anyways, by running the init command followed by the project's name, Usagi generated a project folder with everything I needed to get started. I opened the project in VS Code and I'll be mainly working in the main.lua file. This is the file that Usagi executes first when you run your project, and you can also include other Lua files with the required keyword. By using the run command followed by the project folder name, Usagi will run your project. And as you can see, it was really easy to set up a project and get it to run. But another thing I was really excited to use about this engine was the dev command. By running this command, it still runs your projects as normal, but now there's hot reloading. What this means is that if I make changes to the main.lua file, Usagi will automatically reload the projects with all the changes applied. From there, I started thinking about what game I wanted to make. I first played around with the graphics. The graphics API is really simple in Usagi. In fact, here's all the graphics commands. You got circles, rectangles, text, sprites, and triangles. You also don't define colors like you would for other game engines, where you set a specific RGB value. Instead, there's a set color palette that you can use and you can change. By default, the color palette is the same as in Pico 8. After a while, I decided to make a Pong game, but not just any Pong game with 2 paddles on each side. I decided to make a Pong game where there's only one paddle orbiting around the center and a ball that is affected by gravity. So basically, you have to hit the ball and keep it in the center. I started off by creating a ball with position and velocity, and every frame I would add gravity to the ball's y velocity. Adding the velocity to the position would make the ball move, and that gave me a simple falling ball. Next, I worked on the paddle and gave it rotation and distance from the center. In every frame, I checked if the player was pressing the left or right keys and then changing the rotation based on the direction. The paddle position is shown by the yellow circle here. Next was drawing the paddle. Now remember, when I said Usagi has a really simple graphics, yeah, this was going to be a problem here as there wasn't a built-in way to draw a rotated rectangle. So I would have to do it myself using the draw triangle function. Basically, I would calculate the 4 corners of the rectangle, then split it into 2 triangles and then draw them each separately. This wasn't too hard, just a bit of extra maths to get everything working. I was also able to add a restart mechanic by putting everything inside a clean state variable and then copying that to another variable called state. Now every time the player restarted the game, everything would be reset. By the way, Lua doesn't copy tables, it references them, so to copy the clean state variable, I use this function that basically duplicates the table. Next was collisions. Usagi does have functions to detect circles and rectangle shapes overlapping, but that wasn't going to work here as the paddle was rotated, so once again I would have to do it myself. This wasn't too hard. I basically checked if the position of the ball was inside the paddle, and if it was, it means it's colliding with the paddle and we can do collisions. As you can see, now the ball bounces off the paddle, but only goes up and down and not reacting to the direction of the paddle. That's because right now I'm just reversing the direction of the ball's velocity and not taking into account the paddle's orientation. This was really easy to fix by creating a reflect function and taking the normal direction of the paddle to reflect the velocity of the ball. And now everything was working. I also added some acceleration to the movement of the paddle to make the movement feel smoother. After that, the game was basically finished, and I actually think it was kind of fun to play to hit the ball and keep it in the center. So next I did some polishing by adding sound effects to the ball when it hits the paddle. I used FXXR to generate a sound effect which I put in the sound effects folder in my project, which was then detected by Usagi, and playing the sound effects was really easy. Just one function that takes in the name of the sound effect. I also realized there's another function for playing sound where you can change the volume and pitch of the sound. So I used that instead, and by applying some random pitch and volume changes, it made the sound feel less repetitive. Also added an effect to the paddle where it bounces back when it hits the ball before springing back into place. This was done by offsetting the paddle, then looping it back to its original position. Next, I wanted to add coins in the game where you can collect them using the ball, and the number of coins you collected would be your score. This was really easy to do just by spawning coins in the playable area and then increasing the player's score when the ball touches them, before spawning another one. I also wanted to render the coins with an image rather than just a plain circle, so I opened up a sprite and drew a coin. It wasn't the best looking coin, but it was fine for what I was doing. Also, just another thing with Usagi, I used a sprite sheet to render each sprite rather than individual images. Anyways, I changed the plain circle for the coin sprite and added another sound effect for collecting the coin, and the game was basically done. After that, I was ready to export my game, and this is where I think Usagi really shines. By running the export command and giving it a platform target, Usagi will bundle your game into a single zip folder that you can send to others. Then they can just unzip it and run the game. This process was extremely easy to use, and it even supports the web. By setting the target to all, Usagi will build the game for all platforms that it supports. Afterwards, I went to itch.io and uploaded it all, making sure to check this file will be played in the browser for the web version so that players will be able to play the game on itch.io. After a few minutes, my game was up and people could play it. This was a really simple process, and I don't think the exporting process could have been made much easier. You can even try the game out now for yourself, link in the description. Overall, my impression of Usagi is really solid. It's quite an easy engine to learn, assuming you know some basic programming and a few game dev tricks. Lu was also a really easy language to learn that anyone can pick up in an afternoon. The one downside of Usagi is that it's a really simple game engine and doesn't have a lot of features you might want, like drawing rotated rectangles and collisions. Some of those things you have to do it yourself. It is a simple game engine for prototyping and getting a basic idea of what your game will feel like as quickly as possible, which I do think it achieves. And if you do need more features, Usagi even has a Loveify command, which ports your project to Love2D, which I think is a cherry on top. Love2D really is just a more advanced version of Usagi, so why would you not just start with Love2D? While I do think Love2D is easy to use, it's just not as portable as Usagi, and with rapid prototyping, Usagi definitely wins here. And that's how I created a game with Usagi Game Engine. If you liked the video, I would be grateful if you left a like, and if you have any other thoughts you would like to share, leave it in the comments below. Anyways, cheers!